There are certain habits that basically all wealthy people have in common that you guys can put to use in your life. And the first one is going to be the most controversial, but I could not feel more strongly about this. They make no excuses. They take total responsibility for their lives. In fact, many people that fall into that category will take responsibility for things that clearly don't even have anything to do with themselves. I have said many times, this is arguably the most controversial thing I've ever said, but I'm telling you, if you adopt this in your soul and act accordingly, it will change your life forever. You will become an unstoppable machine. If I, Tom Bilyeu, were hit by a drunk driver, I would blame myself. Not because I don't think that the drunk driver caused the accident, because blaming the drunk driver gives all my power away. And I can't do anything about them. I can't stop people from drinking. I can't control the way other people drive, but I can control whether or not I'm on the road. I can control how good I get at defensive driving, how much I pay attention and looking out, all of that. All of those things I control.
Need motivation? Watch a top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Carmichael, and I make these videos because in my first business, I was making $300 a month. I quit on my business partner, and the thing that saved me was studying the stories of super successful entrepreneurs. So I hope that this story today helps give you the motivation you need, because I still need it too myself.
So today, let's learn from one of the best, Tom Bilyeu, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy.
If you take control of your life and make no excuses, now you're in a solution-oriented mindset. And people that get wealthy, let me tell you right now, all they think about are solutions. How do I solve this problem? Because you are, if you're wealthy, you must remember you're paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of the problems you solve. And if that's true, you better get very good at solving very difficult problems. And if you have something that's holding you back, like I'm not as smart as a lot of people, and that really pisses me off. But the reality is, pissing and moaning about it is not going to make me any smarter. All I can do is go make the most of what I have. I can go learn. Now, I could get pissed off at my mom. I could be angry at my dad. But the reality is that I am where I'm at from either how I was impacted as a kid in the developmental years, how I was impacted in the womb, my genetics, all of that stuff. But it's all done. The die is cast. There's nothing I can do about it. But there's 50% of my life that's completely malleable. And so I'm going to focus on that. And I'm going to, like other wealthy people, be obsessed with learning. You've got to be obsessed with learning. So you're not making any excuses. You take total responsibility for your life. And one of the ways you take responsibility for your life is even if circumstances are against you, even if you really have been dealt a bad hand, you know that you can get better at things. You have the only belief that matters. The only belief that matters is if I put energy and effort into getting better, I will actually get better. Now, why does that matter? Because skills have utility. Now, why does that matter? Because skills let you do something other people can't do. And that thing that it lets you do is solve problems that people want solved. What have I said like 8 times in this episode? That people will pay you in direct proportion to the difficulty of the problems you solve. So going out, learning, getting skills that have utility allows you to do things other people can't do. You're going to be able to get money other people can't get. That is something that wealthy people understand. Maybe it's not fair, but who gives a f? Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to solve these problems for you. And if you're turning to people for a handout, all you will ever get is what they're willing to put in your hand. But if, on the other hand, you're willing to go, hey, what's the hardest problem you have to solve? I'm going to make that problem go away for you. And all I ask in return is money. And I'm going to ask the amount of money that's either equal to the exchange for you or less, so that you're tripping over yourself to buy this thing. And that is precisely how you end up breaking the time for money equation. Because wealthy people understand you just can't charge enough for your time in order to make it worth it. So as you can imagine, there are people that offer to pay me a lot of money for one-on-one coaching, but I don't do it. And why don't I do it? Because unless you're willing to give me equity in your company to do it, I just can't charge enough to make it worth the time. So you have to break that time for money equation. You have to be getting ownership in something.
Rule number 2 is build motivation.
Motivation comes in waves. That's the most important thing to understand, and that's just neurobiology. So that's true for everybody. Motivation is, it is a very complicated cocktail of beliefs of excitement, thinking about, what you're going to achieve. It is how your calorie count is, how much sleep you've gotten, all of these things bundled up. And so it is inevitable that sometimes you're really going to feel it and sometimes you're not. So a big part of motivation is always about actually wanting that thing at the end of the rainbow. So what is your pot of gold? What is the thing that made you want to do this in the first place? And so when it comes to working out, personally, I absolutely hate working out. So I understand anybody that has motivation for a minute and then ends up burning out. I get that so much, I can't even begin to tell you. So here are the things that I do to make sure that even as these sort of ebbs and flows go of my motivation, that I stay on track. Number one is making sure that you want that thing at the end, that you're actually excited about that. So you've got to be honest with yourself about what it is that you want. So often, people are judging themselves for what it is that they want, that they don't double down on focusing on that thing. So let's say that you just want to look good when you're naked. And that is the God's honest truth about what is getting you excited about this. And what you're going to want to say is, this is about longevity. I just want to be healthy. I want to be, my best self. But in reality, you're just thinking about six-pack abs, washboard stomach, or the way you look when you catch yourself in the mirror, whatever is real. Or if you're like me and you're a psychopath about wanting to live forever, and that really is the thing that motivates you, then lean into that. But don't let other people's judgments about what you should want color what you actually want. Focus on what is it you really want? What is it you really care about? Grab onto that, focus on that, start fantasizing about that again, spending time thinking about what it would be like to actually have that. Because you said a word in your question that I want to take exception to, which is that you want to find your motivation again. You don't find motivation, you build motivation. So we're going to build that motivation back up by admitting what we really want, by focusing on it and getting hype about it. And then we also want to find a way to really fall in love with the process. So what is it in the moment, in the act of actually working out, that you can get into? Is it the getting stronger? For me, that was huge. Like knowing that I was getting stronger and I needed to associate something with that. You want to have a self-narrative around showing up and doing this thing when you know other people can't, they won't. During COVID, during lockdown, they're getting worse, they're getting weaker, you're getting stronger, you're getting better, and people are so weird about competition. But my friend, let me tell you, one of the most controversial posts that I posted recently, which I did not expect to be controversial, was that I was talking about business, but I said this is a competition, which is patently self-evident in my opinion. But being willing to compete with others and to have a self-narrative around striving and pushing and doing more than other people are willing to do, that will feed your soul in a way that I can't convey. And people that are afraid to compete, people that are afraid to lean in, people that are afraid to make huge demands of themselves, they will fall by the wayside to the people that can have that discipline, that get excited about pushing themselves, being accountable, being consistent. Because ultimately, those things lead to an actual outcome, meaning you actually do get stronger. You do get better. You look better. You have better longevity, better stamina, whatever it is, whatever that thing is that you're motivated by, you really can achieve that. But you have to be consistent. Now, I got motivated just answering your question. So I'm very hopeful that that motivated you as well.
Rule number 3 is find real happiness.
Money can't buy happiness. I'm sure you've heard that 1,000 times, but I want to tell you why it can't buy you happiness, but why people keep chasing money. Because people are always going to chase money. And the reason people are going to chase money is because it is extraordinarily powerful. But it can't touch how you feel about yourself. So I think that people have been told lies about money, like we were talking about earlier. But one of the lies that you've been told is that money isn't powerful. It's not going to make you feel the way that you want to feel. And the truth is, it isn't going to make you feel better about yourself, but it is the great facilitator. And so if there's something that you want to build, money is going to unlock that. Money can make you feel amazing, that you can do something incredible with your time, your opportunity, your knowledge. You can build something extraordinary that is this economic engine that serves people. I think entrepreneurship is turning your potential into skill set in a way that allows you to build this ongoing economic engine that allows you to create something that improves people's lives. That to me is entrepreneurship. And that's awesome. That feels amazing. So money's more powerful than people think, but it doesn't make you happy. What makes you happy is striving to add value to people's lives, to improve every day. Those are the things that are going to make you happy. So even if you're trying to create a business and that business fails and you end up not only not making money, you lose money. The failure will suck, don't get me wrong. But when you're going all out every day and you're improving and you're helping people and you're bettering their lives and you're sincerely pursuing getting better so that you can serve people in a way that feeds you and gives you more energy than it takes, that is the juice. The greatest thing that life has to offer you is the following. Okay, I'm telling you this from the position of somebody who's made a lot of money. The greatest joy life has to offer, the highest amplitude joy that life has to offer is the following. You are working very hard. You are scaling a mountain, and that mountain is incredibly difficult. And I don't mean a literal mountain. You're building a business. You're working to become a great athlete, whatever. You are working your ass off. It is hard. You are on this mountainside. You have frostbite in your fingers. You can barely hold on, but you're going. You can't believe it. You look down. It is a terrifying drop. If you fall, you die. It's nerve-wracking, man. The stakes are high, but you decide you're going to keep climbing. You're going to keep climbing. And the moment where you're working your ass off, but you can see the ledge, you're about to get to it. It's all working. Everything that you've been busting your ass, it's actually happening. Oh my God. And if I get to that top and I push myself up, it's success. It's a buffet. It's an orgy. It's whatever. It's something incredibly exciting that you have just been so amped to get up there to. That is way more exciting than the success, the having of whatever it is that's on your mountaintop. It's that moment there where you're clinging to your fingers. You're clinging to the side of the mountain with your frost-bitten fingers, and it looks like it's going to work, but it hasn't paid off yet. But if it does pay off, it will be extraordinary. That dream, that moment, it's all working. And if I pull this off, my dreams come true. That's better than your dreams coming true. Why? Because the way the human mind works, you can never eat a meal so satisfying that you're never going to be hungry again. You can never drink a drink so thirst-quenching that you'll never be thirsty again. You can never have sex so good that you never want sex again. It's just not the way that it works. We have this internal hunger that nature has given us to make sure that we keep going and we keep getting fed and we keep getting water and we keep procreating. We have to keep doing all this stuff. So you have, from an evolutionary perspective, buried inside of you an insatiable drive to keep going. So you can't ever have that thing. Even happiness is fleeting. You can't have happiness. You can't hold on to it. It's never going to be yours forever. It will come in and out of your life. But the things that create happiness, improvement, sincere pursuit, doing something you're passionate about, helping other people, those are the things that are going to make you feel the way that you want to feel.
Rule number 4, overcome failure.
Let me tell you, in my 20s, I don't know about you, but in my 20s, I was a mess. In my early 20s, I was so lost, frustrated, afraid, insecure, overwhelmed, paralyzed. I mean, it was a dark period in my life. That's the nature of your 20s. Now, in my 20s, as old as this is going to make me sound, in my 20s, the internet barely existed. So we certainly didn't have YouTube. There wasn't people putting out content that would allow me to recontextualize my world. The fact that you already know the quote that success is going from failure to failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm, you are so much farther ahead than where I was. Now, I'm going to use an analogy of love, if I may. One of the things I find most interesting about love is that in love, you are opening yourself up to being far more easily hurt. When you are in love, it's a very vulnerable state. You have opened yourself to somebody. You've given yourself over, in a way, to that person. And now you are far more easily hurt. They know your insecurities. They could weaponize them against you. And when heartbreak comes along, it's very tempting to turtle up and to protect yourself. But then you're closed off from the things that make love valuable in the first place. The very thing that makes love worthwhile is being able to be open like that to somebody, to be vulnerable to somebody. And the thing that makes love so extraordinary is that even when you get hurt, the people that can open themselves up again and approach somebody without the baggage of previous relationships are the ones that end up finding that beautiful relationship that ends up being worth the vulnerability and worth the sacrifice. And speaking from experience, ends up being the single greatest thing in your life. Now, if you learned nothing from the heartbreak, I understand why it's scary to go into the next thing. But the idea here, the very way that we bounce back from failure, is by looking exclusively at what we can do differently. And when you look exclusively, I'm not saying other people didn't do something that maybe any rational person would say it's all their fault. Maybe the list of things you gave us is literally, you were just the world's unluckiest human being. But the reason that we're going to say good, the reason that we're going to look at this like AI and samples, the reason we're going to remind ourselves that success is going from failure to failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm, the reason that we're going to think of that love analogy and be willing to open ourselves back up is because we're going to figure out what we could have done differently. We're going to see, what can I improve in my skill set? What did this catastrophe reveal about my strategy? And whenever a strategy yields a result different than the desired result, then you know the strategy is, by definition, wrong. And I want you to own that. Doesn't mean you're a bad person, okay? But it does mean that your strategy wasn't working. Go back to AI, right? It's wiggling around. It finally realizes, oh, I need to hit the ball. Oh, okay, cool. So now I'm going to track the movement of the ball and I'm going to adjust my paddle to be there. Okay, cool. I got it. Oh, I actually see that hitting it on the sides is far more advantageous than hitting it in the middle, because once I clear a path on the side, then the ball can bounce around on the top and destroy bricks far faster than any other strategy. Okay, amazing. But you had to first have the reaction that that failure was good. Good. Because it revealed the flaw in my strategy. And because I'm playing the long-term game, I'm going to open myself back up again. I'm going to allow myself to be vulnerable again. I'm going to let the wound hurt as much as it needs to for me to learn the lesson. No more. I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm not going to end up in a death spiral of shame. But I am going to recognize that I could do something different the next time and get a different result. That to run the same strategy and expect the result to change is, as Einstein said, the definition of insanity. So that's what you have to do here. You have to recognize that this thing that you consider the worst thing that ever happened to you, with a change of framing, is actually the best thing that ever happened to you. And if you change the question that you ask about this and say, how did this help me? What did I learn from this? Or what could I learn from this? And how can this improve my strategy moving forward? Then all of a sudden the frame of reference changes, the emotion, the way you feel about it, the dark energy that's around it begins to change because you're stoked, right? This is good. All right, I'm going to learn something from this and it's going to be XYZ. And maybe you only get incrementally better and you try again. And maybe you fail again and you get incrementally better. And all of a sudden, if your life is anything like mine, your 20s were getting kicked in the face over and over and over, but getting a little bit better at blocking, a little bit better at avoiding. And then finally in your 30s, you begin to find your footing and then you turn into beast mode, late 30s, early 40s. And now you feel like you can really move the world. It's exactly what it feels like when you understand how your own mind works, how the minds of others work, and just sort of the nature of the world. It's really incredible. But the only way to get there is to flounder around, to make horrendous mistakes and say good. We're now dealing with the physics of the human mind. And my obsession is to get people to understand that you are having a biological experience. Now, why do I want you to understand that you're having a biological experience? Because I want you to understand that the brain reacts a certain way, and you can actually insert yourself into that and change your approach, framing, the way that you react. And in changing those things, you will change not only the way you feel, but the outcomes that you're able to get. And so I want to introduce you to Viktor Frankl and cognitive behavioral therapy. So Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response is a gap, and how we choose to react in that gap will determine the rest of our lives. Now, if you don't know Viktor Frankl, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He wrote that book after getting released from Auschwitz. Okay, this is a guy that survived multiple concentration camps, and he was a neuroscientist, and his ability to explain what is happening inside the mind of a human during something that catastrophic is breathtaking.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
Rule number 5 is shift your identity.
Hi, Tom. I love the show. You've mentioned previously that as an entrepreneur, you've had to battle extreme laziness and personal disengagement. How did you overcome this challenge and win the battle for your mind?
All right. So at some point, we're going to need to have a mechanism where I want people to guess the answer that I'm going to give, because I know there are diehard people right now that already know what I'm about to say. And the answer is identity. That is it. So you have to put in place things about yourself that you are going to make true. So it usually starts that it's something that is not true about yourself, but because you believe, at least I do, that even identity is malleable and that you can change it at any time, I just started telling myself, I'm the type of person that. I'm the type of person that does their work. I'm the type of person that gets out of bed after 10 minutes. I'm the type of person that follows through. I'm the, whatever. Those things that you want to be true about yourself. Close your eyes, imagine the person that you want to become, watch a movie, be inspired by somebody, read a book, be inspired by how that person is. What are traits that you can take into your life? I mean, this is why we're doing impact theory, because we want to create the kind of content that shows people these are the types of traits, these are the outcomes of those traits that you're going to want to bring into your own life, and then do the social commentary on it to show people how to extract that information and really put it to use in their own life. So be inspired by somebody, something, so that when you close your eyes and think about the person that you want to be, you have something very specific that you can aim towards, and then begin to, brick by brick, bring those traits into your world by saying, I'm the type of person that. So I would say things like, I'm lazy by nature, but I'm the type of person that overcomes his nature. So I'm the type of person that, despite being lazy, I get up on time, I do my work, I push myself, I don't relax until my work is done. If I'm during the week, if I'm awake, I'm either working or working out. It's just you start doing all these things, and for you not to feel like a total ass, you have to act in accordance with them. Otherwise, you have to remove them from the same things that you say about yourself that you get to take pride in, that you get to tell other people that you do. And I've just never found that lying about stuff feels good. So it's when it's not true, then I just don't say it. And so when I really want to say something, I really want it to be true about myself, then I know that I have to force myself to act in accordance with that. And so identity and values drive behavior. Period.
Rule number 6 is get so good they can't ignore you.
I've been here for almost 6 years and desperately want to leave, but don't have a skill set to get me away from this industry. So I'm miserable and it's hard to hide what I'm feeling. How can I cope here while I build up other skills? Thank you. God, what would I really do? I have the cheap, cheesy answer, which I'm going to give you really fast. And then we're all going to give me 7 seconds to just sit blankly and think. My cheap and cheesy answer is that I would start looking for what's the ideal industry that I want to be in, and I would identify that And I would then say, okay, like vision board it, hang it on the fridge, whatever. Like I want to get into this world. I'm really excited about and deeply passionate. And then I would start nights and weekends working to acquire the skills, and I would set myself a goal. And honestly, a year is plenty of time. A year is plenty of time for you to get enough skills that you could go into an interview and convince them that you know what you're talking about and it's worth taking a shot on you, even if that means taking a pay cut. All right, so that's the kind of answer that we've heard from me 1,000 times. It's very true, it's very real, and that may be exactly what I would do, but I really want to think about this for a second. So I'm fascinated by how much of the culture can you change from within, and I think it's hard as hell. I think it's one of the most difficult things that anyone can undertake, which is really trying to flip people. But I really want to know, like, if you couldn't leave, like if for 5 years you had to just grind it out to get the skill set that you wanted to acquire, what would it look like to find a path to happiness inside the company? Here's what I would do. I am utterly convinced that people will recognize you if you get good enough. And I would start getting so good at my job that people would want to steal my ideas. So that would be step one. I would want to put myself in a position where my managers are stealing all my ideas, because now they're going to have fear of loss, whether they say it or not. If you're the one actually generating the ideas, they're going to have fear of loss. Also, if you can execute against that, then they're really going to be afraid to lose you. Now that puts you in a position of power. Second of all, and that power is going to feel good, right? So you're going to be progressing, you're going to be getting better. That's going to be feeding your confidence, your self-esteem, which is very, very helpful when you're dealing in a difficult environment. Then I'm also going to never, ever, ever engage in gossip or anything like that. And I might. Now, I'm not sure. I would have to really read the situation because you don't want to come across as a total douche. But one thing I might start doing is the next time somebody's like being really gossipy about somebody, I would say, you know, it's really interesting. I'm practicing the saying, I heard this piece of advice on this random guy's web series, and he said, you get what you focus on. It's really interesting. So while that may be true about that person, I'm trying this new method of flipping my criticisms into compliments. And I don't know, you guys might think I'm crazy, but what do you think about this? And then I would compliment that person, or just get the out of that conversation. But if I thought I could pull it off without being a douche, and I thought I might be able to begin swaying people's ways of being, and trust me, I know that would take a very long time because humans are prone to gossip. It is, by the way, one of the ways that we transmit ideas. So you may not ever be able to stop the gossip, and we may not even want to as a species stop the gossip, but 80-20, right? 80% of the time should be about the things we're excited about, cheering people on, totally amped up, super excited for them. So because I'm such a huge believer in the principles, which is only talking truth, not saying things behind somebody's back that you wouldn't be willing to say to their face, I would just start implementing that in my own life, and I would walk people through. I would tell them why I'm doing it. I really could go on and on about that, and I'd be so interested to see if that would really work in real life. But I don't think that you have to choose between those two. So I know that on the other hand, nights and weekends, getting the skills to get out, that you can do. And also, honestly, what I would do is cut your expenses to the quick so that you don't need as much money, so that you can leave sooner. Intern for somebody nights and weekends. If you can go part-time, do it, and then start interning for the industry that you want to be in on the day or days that you're able to free up, or go be a freelancer. I don't know what industry you're in, so I don't know how easy it would be to freelance. But that would be incredible. But I would get out of the toxic environment as much as rapidly as possible.
Rule number 7 is break bad habits.
There are almost certainly a lot of things that you're doing that are going to keep you broke. The first is what we were talking about in the last question. It's all about financial literacy. Do you know how money actually works? As somebody who came to this game really late, I understand how easy it is to be educated, to be, dare I say, intelligent, and still not actually understand how money actually functions. And so you want to make sure that you're taking time to get financially literate. The next thing is, and some of these are going to be so basic and people don't do them, you need to stop spending so much money. Most people live paycheck to paycheck. Even people that are making 6 figures live paycheck to paycheck. It's something like 2/3 of people that make $250,000 a year still live paycheck to paycheck. So the goal is, instead of flexing on how much money you make, you want to make sure that you're living below your means. If you want to dramatically reduce the amount of stress in your life and set yourself up for success, you want to make sure that you're living below your means. Now, as you begin to live below your means, the first habit you're going to want to introduce is that you're going to start saving some of your money. So of course, there's going to be an amount that you're going to allocate towards your living expenses, your house payment or your rent, your car payment, insurance, all of that stuff, food. But then you want to make sure that automatically you're saving money. If you're not automatically saving money, then you're walking down the path of remaining broke. So you want to make sure that you're living below your means, and you want to make sure that you're automatically saving money. Now, once you have saved up enough money that you have somewhere between 6 and 12 months of emergency cash on hand, if you get sick, if you hate your job, any of that stuff is exacerbated 1,000-fold if you're living paycheck to paycheck, because now you've got nowhere to go. There's no way for you to be able to weather that storm. And so it's what's known as a threshold event. Everything in your life may seem like it's going well until you hurt your back and you're unable to go to work for 2 months and you were living paycheck to paycheck and now you're in financial ruin. Or God forbid, you get a diagnosis and you end up with medical bills and you go bankrupt from that. That happens so frequently. So you want to make sure that you have 6 to 12 months saved up. Now, once you have 6 to 12 months saved up, now we want to start thinking about investing. Now, if you're not investing, you're going to be getting eaten alive by inflation. Now, a lot of people are not thinking about inflation. And the reality is, even in a good economy, you're looking at inflation being around 2%. Now, right now, as we're recording this, inflation is about 8.5%. So you don't want to count on it being as low as 2% because that's not always going to be the case. Now, the crazy thing is, most people don't understand what inflation actually is. So inflation is your ability to buy something goes down every year. That's the same as losing money every year. So imagine if you have $100. If inflation is 8.5% like it is now, by the next year, because it's happening every day, by the next year, you don't have $100. Even if you saved it, didn't touch it, it's locked away in your bank account. You now have the equivalent. It'll still say $100, but that $100 now only buys you the equivalent of $91.50. Okay? That's inflation. So your buying power, even though the number stays the same, the buying power is going down. So as of right now, as we're recording this, you would need to make $8.50 every year in order to stay at the buying power of your $100. Okay? So saving money, even though I just told you to save 6 to 12 months, you want to make sure that you understand that you can't just sock all of your money away and think that it's going to stay. And this doesn't haunt anyone more than me. I get it, because investing is nerve-wracking. But if you don't invest, you're not going to be able to keep up with inflation. If you don't keep up with inflation, you're going to be losing money over time. And if you're losing money over time, that nest egg that you're going to hope takes care of you at the end of the day isn't going to be there for you. And so you really have to be thoughtful about how you invest.
Rule number 8 is develop useful skills.
This may be the biggest problem we face as a society. People don't remember that skills have utility. They let you do something. You don't learn to build a house to impress your parents. You learn to build a house so people can live in the house you build. And once people understand that, like, holy shit, you're building this house so somebody can live in it, build a home in it, have a family, be sheltered from storms. Like, it's a real thing, man. And so all of that effort and energy went into, I have the chills right now, is so you can create that moment for yourself, for other people. It is something so much more than going to architecture school, which maybe you went to because your parents wanted that and they were architects. And so you do that thing for that. And you forget that the whole reason you became an architect was to build houses. And so once people realize, oh, I'm putting all of this time and energy to build these things because they let me do something. What do I want to do? What do I want to give? What do I want to create? When you look at skills from that perspective, it is being a superhero. It is being a superhero. You're going to collect these abilities. These abilities actually let you do something. The fact that Superman can fly allows him to save people, allows him to do things other people can't do. We all have this opportunity to become capable of the extraordinary, to be able to do things other people can't do. And that feels so good.
Rule number 9 is adopt a growth mindset.
There's a gap between who people are and what they tell you they want to accomplish. Because in the beginning, I hired everyone.
Right.
Not because I'm super smart and thought, hey, I should. There was no one else, right? Like we had the smallest handful of people ever. And so I started doing the interviewing. As I was doing it, I started realizing, God, these guys tell me they want to do something amazing with their life. And if you just listen, like, wow, yeah, like I want to be on your team, dude. You're going to do amazing stuff. And then you realize they can't execute on that dream. So
Why can't they?
They don't have the mindset yet. Like you could do an entire podcast series on how to get the mindset, but I'll just use Carol Dweck and her amazing book,
Great book.
Mindset.
I have it up there too on the shelf somewhere.
I'm sure. Such a good book. I see Simon Sinek up there, who is also very influential in us.
Yeah.
And she says some people either believe they're as smart as they're ever going to be, and that's that. So they're going to be ego protective, and they're going to, try to thwart anything that makes them feel like they're not the smartest person or whatever. And then there's people with a growth mindset, and they realize I'm not the smartest person, and I'm certainly not as smart as I could be.
Yeah.
So even if I am the smartest person that ever lived, I could get a little bit smarter. And so when they're confronted with contradictory information, they learn and they soak it up like a sponge.
Whereas other people are fixed mindset, right?
Correct.
They're fixed on like, no, this is the way and I'm right and that's wrong.
Yes. And I would say the world, everyone's on a spectrum, right? Even I, as much as I believe in it and work my ass off to be a growth mindset, I still have, let's call it 10%, where I catch myself and I'm like, come on, dude, you know better than that.
Yeah.
But so people that fall in the, let's say, sub 50% spectrum of the growth mindset, it's got to be 98%.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is practice gratitude.
What is the best way to truly experience gratitude when you have a goal-oriented mindset? Well, I'll give you just like raw tactics. So first of all, I do this as a part of my meditation routine. I try to experience gratitude both in like the big things and in the small things. They're not always tied to my goal. It is purely something to get the neurochemistry pumping in the right direction, to be in a good headspace, to really feel and internalize on a visceral, emotional level that sense of like real deep fulfillment, gratitude, appreciation for what you have going on in your life. So like I said, I'll pick something big and I'll pick something small. So it might be something like, I'm so grateful for 17 years with my wife, somebody that really understands me, that knows my pettinesses, knows my like the dark, ugly corners of my mind. Like they know all of that and they still love me, and they're with me on this journey, and she picks me up and brushes me off when I'm down. I mean, it's just like beautiful. I'm literally slipping into the mindset right now. Like I am so grateful for that moment. And by the way, that's how easily it happens. Like you start, and this is exactly what I'm going through in my head. These are the exact words that I'm thinking in my mind. I don't say them out loud, but I'm thinking them in my mind, which then creates this neurochemical cascade, and you find yourself actually experiencing the emotions of that gratitude. Then I will pick something small. Let's say, take my dog Bonsai. Man, when he gets a haircut, his fur feels like velvet. There it is. I love to pet that dog. Just don't know it. When his hair is freshly cut, super small, super stupid, but I'm actually grateful for it. And it's amazing. So I might think of something small like that. I might think of like, whoa, on a warm day, like that cool breeze is just amazing. Or air conditioning. Air conditioning is amazing. Let's all take a second to just be appreciative of air conditioning. That, again, literally, as I'm talking about this, I'm actually feeling the gratitude for these things. So it works just like that.
I can't rule out that you may be in a toxic environment. So let's just say if you're in a toxic environment, that's a real thing. You want to get out of that toxic environment. You want to move on to something else. Like just trying to change a whole organization if they are toxic is not interesting to me in the slightest. Now, toxicity comes from insecurity. So if that helps, it actually does help me to know that when people are mean-spirited, when they like to see other people fail, it's all coming from their own insecurities. I find tremendous emotional relief in that. Now I want to talk about being low. In a non-toxic environment, while I don't think anybody races to have others witness them at their worst,
We've all been there. We are all deeply flawed, emotional creatures. And showing vulnerability should never be frowned on. For you, forget how people are reacting, right? So there's wallowing, and that isn't interesting. Shouldn't be interesting to you in yourself or in others. There is wanting sympathy instead of empathy. So sympathy is feel bad for me. You should never want that. Empathy is understand where I'm at. Being seen is rad. And my wife and I have an agreement. I don't want sympathy from her, no matter how hard my life gets. Empathy, desperately. And the way that we've always explained it to each other is, if I'm ever knocked to my knees, I don't want you to get on your knees with me and cry. I want you to extend a hand, tell me how much you love me, pick me back up, brush me off, and remind me of who I can become. That's rad. So I'm not worried if she sees me low. I'm not worried if my team sees me fail. I think all of us, if you're really going for something extraordinary, I think all of us are going to fail at least as much as we succeed, maybe more. And so fearing the low moments is not the right way to think about it. Recontextualize that failure as a learning opportunity. Earn people's respect, not command it. Earn people's respect by getting back up on your feet, not asking people to feel bad for you, focusing on the learning opportunity, show that you have a growth mindset, get your ego out of the way, focus entirely on getting better. And if you rebound quickly with energy and enthusiasm, even if some people take the opportunity to kick you while you're down, in the long run, people will gravitate towards you because they see that you're real, you're not posing. They see that you bounce back, that you don't whine, wallow, complain. You get up, you're focused on improvement and moving forward. And look, the reality is getting great requires you to fail over and over and over. There's an amazing quote by Winston Churchill, and he says, success is the ability to go from failure to failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm. And you just can't worry about what other people are thinking when you're down. You have to go, cool, this is a learning experience. I'm going to get back up. And your response to that shouldn't be orchestrated to command respect, earn respect, to even think about people. It should be you have a goal. And you know to build your skill set to the point where you're so good that you can't be denied, that all the booze in the world can't block your dunk. You have to fail. Because it really is. It isn't a saying. Failure is the most information-rich data stream you will ever encounter. In the failure, if you get your ego out of the way and you're not crying about it and you're not, worried about what other people are going to think, you're just thinking, okay, cool, I failed. And if I can understand why, then I can get better. Now you do that day in and day out, all of a sudden you're going to earn respect as a consequence of your just consistent improvement. And if I were going to sum up everything that we've talked about today, it's that. It's not focusing on earning people's respect or worrying about what they think. It's about the physics of how the world works. And the physics of how the world works is pretty straightforward. You have a goal. You have an idea of how to reach that goal, right? There's an impediment between where you are and where you want to be. You've got a theory about how to overcome that impediment. You try it. Many of the things you try will fail, or they'll be insufficient. You'll assess why it was insufficient, and you'll begin again more intelligently, as Henry Ford said. Failure is just the ability to begin again more intelligently. And you do that over and over and over and over and over, and it's what I call the physics of progress. It's just, you can't boil it down any more simple than that. All right, so don't be afraid of your low moments. If you're in a toxic environment, get out. Focus every day on getting better, and the respect will come as a result of that.
This is one of the most common reframes ever. Worth, being good enough, being right, being smart. Guys, these are very fragile ways to think of yourself. And I understand the temptation because it feels really good when you do feel worthy. It feels really good when you are right. It feels really good to actually be the best at something. But the truth of the world, just the truth of the world, it is this way. You're always going to encounter somebody better, stronger, faster, more pious, more worthy, more whatever. So if you live in a world of comparison, it will rob you of your joy. Even people who, like Michael Jordan, if you put him right now up against most rookies, the rookie's gonna win. Rookie's younger, faster, hungrier. Michael's just lost a step, he's gotten old. So if he were trying to make his life about his glory in that period, let's say he lives 80 years. If he's living for the glory of 20 years, that's the most heartbreaking life I can imagine. So you're going to move in and out of these moments where you are a badass to where you're not a badass. Don't value yourself for that. Value yourself for something that is anti-fragile. Being smart, being right, being good, being worthy, they are very fragile things because sometimes you won't be. It simply is this way. Valuing yourself for being a learner, on the other hand, for trying, that's anti-fragile. Because the more somebody attacks you for being dumb, but you build your self-esteem around learning, the first thing I think when someone says I'm dumb is awesome. In what way? Because I view myself in these 10-year windows. And I know the same people that were laughing at me when I became an entrepreneur, knew nothing about it, and I was who's the kid in the server room, and I was the only one with an office that had no windows, and there were like 9 other computers in my room, and nobody knew who I was, and the only contribution I made to phone calls was to say goodbye at the end of a conference call. I'm not kidding. 10 years later, I own a $1 billion business. Woo! Who the f*** is laughing now? But it only worked because I didn't mind looking stupid. It only worked because I wasn't asking myself whether I was worthy or whether I deserved it. I just asked myself, am I leaving it all out on the field? Yes or no? Am I learning? Yes or no? And if I'm not, I didn't go, oh, that makes me a bad person. I went, I need to change my actions to get a different result. And once you start thinking like that, and you literally value yourself for how hard you're trying, how much you're learning, how willing you are to accept when you fall on your face, that you don't try to get out from under it or campaign to convince people that you're better than you really are. Own where you're at. Because once you're real about it, then you can make progress. But if your energy cycles go to bullshitting yourself, you'll never get out of it.
Let's play a game. And let's call this game, What Would Tom Do? Now I want you to ask, do you think that Tom is going to stay in a bad job for long? No. I'll skip to the last page. And Tom has a bad job, skip to the last page, Tom leaves the job. Now, Tom is going to be very thoughtful because I completely understand that this is largely about, I have to pay bills. Hey, Tom, nice for you. You don't have kids and you've already been successful. So that's not really helpful for me. Now I will say that joy and fulfillment are the punchline of life, not money, not success, not adoration. So you are losing if you're staying in a job that makes you unhappy. I promise if you have kids, and that's the thing that's really making this difficult, you are bringing that unhappiness home. And so we have a moral obligation to break that, to make sure that we are pursuing things that are joyful so that we can show our kids, hey, this is how it's done. Now, you're not stuck at a job. There is something that's making you feel stuck at the job. I'm going to assume for now that it's money, keeping a roof over your loved ones' heads. That to me seems like the scariest. So, okay, assuming that it's that, remember, there are always 2 levers. Lever number 1, make more money. Lever number 2, need less money. Okay? You can pull on either lever you want. Now, if you say, Tom, I can't need less money, it's just we've already cut it all to the quick. My kids just need a certain amount. It just is what it is. Okay, amazing. So now we're going to make more money. Awesome. How do we go about doing that? First of all, let's identify what we hate about our job. Because are there other roles within that company? If it's just the job but not the company, is there somewhere that we could move? In which case we go ask, hey, I want this job, which pays more money. What would I need to do? What skill set would I need to have? What expertise would I need to demonstrate in order to get there? And then go do that thing. If it's the company, and the company's toxic, we can't be there anymore, then I will ask, how many resumes have you sent out in the last 48 hours? If the answer isn't 250, then we've got some work to do. Now, let's assume that the answer is 250. Then we have to figure out, why aren't we getting a response? Do we not have a skill set that's marketable? Is our resume terrible? Are we not going out to the right places? Have we not framed ourselves well? Could be any one of those things. But we have to be honest and real and figure out what we need to do to get out of this situation. But we certainly don't just accept defeat and go, wow, this sucks. This is my whole life. Nights and weekends is also going to come to our help, our aid here. So nights and weekends, if you know, whoa, I just don't have the skill set that I need to go find another job, then we're going to start building that skill set. Maybe the skill set is interviewing, getting good at interviewing, and then we're going to get good at that. But we are going to find a way out of our situation, and we are going to find a way out of our situation quickly. So do not accept defeat. Hold yourself accountable to the truth, to what you need to do to get out of that situation, and then get out. Because as you said, our time is truly limited.
You must say, fuck that noise. You cannot allow yourself to say that I'm too old ever again. I don't care if you're 98 and you know that you have 15 seconds left to live. Don't buy into the myth that you're too old, because that is going to slow you down. There is a quote that haunts me to my core, which is, genius is a young man's game. Why is genius a young man's game? Part of it is definitely energy. Part of it is the naivete of the beginner. But part of it is just that as you get older, you become dogmatic. You start saying like, I'm too old. You start buying into the myth that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. The reality is your brain remains plastic until the day you die, meaning you can learn new things. The human animal is designed to learn. That's what we are designed to do. When you're younger, it's easier. You learn at a more accelerated rate. I'm not denying that. But if you lose sight of the fact that you really can learn it at any age, and by the way, as you get older, you have wisdom, you have better tools for learning. So there's an efficiency to learning that is not present when you're young in terms of tools and tactics that you definitely have when you're older. And so you also have more will, more drive, more reason. And so if you can manage your energy on both a psychological level, because your psychology is going to have a huge influence over the neurochemistry that you pump. If you've ever put on a good song and that energy fills you up, that song got you hyped, you secreted dopamine, and now you felt more alive. The problem is, as you get older, you try things, you find the things that work, and the world of things that the young people are trying, which is why they don't know what the fuck is going to work. So they're trying everything. Begins to narrow until you're like, here's that narrow bandwidth of shit that actually works. When you get there and you think you're at the pinnacle, you are fucked, my friend. That is how people get trapped by being old. You've got to discard all that shit and say, I'm going to try things. Maybe it didn't work in the past, but maybe it'll work now. Read voraciously, find new ideas, put them to use. If you learn something, use it that fucking day. Push yourself to get better, to get faster, to learn new things, reading, podcasts, YouTube videos. I am insatiable in my appetite for knowledge because I am always shocked. One, the world is learning new things. And two, I'm discovering new things that interact with my wiring, right? We all have about 50% hard wiring, so we are not blank slates. So it's interacting with the unique way that I think about things, but it's also interacting with the things that I've learned, the current climate of what's happening and all that. But if you're not taking in new ideas, then you can't get new ideas out. So I used to have this formula that hung over my desk, and it said, ideas in equal ideas out. You've got to voraciously get those ideas in. So fuck that noise about being too old. That is a self-defeating way to think about it. Never, ever repeat disempowering shit like I'm too old ever again. And then go out there, learn to fucking code, become the greatest coder that ever lived. You're 98, you got a long ass beard, and you code better than anybody else, and God only knows what the language will be then, but you're gonna beat these young whippersnappers. And if you maintain that idea, my friend, you will stay mentally supple and you will dominate. Dominate, I say. So get after it. You can learn. Anybody can.
Your diet is one of the most important things that you can do to boost your energy, your focus, and your productivity. What you should be eating varies wildly, and I will just tell you right now that while I'm gonna give you a very simple thing that you can follow and it's gonna take care of 80% of all of your desires and problems, know that there is massive variability at the individual level and that you should be testing a lot of different things to find out what is right for you. So what I'm about to lay out is the sort of generic strategy that I think everybody should try. But getting into the nitty-gritty is going to require you to do a lot of testing. There is no way around this. I wish that dieting was more simplistic, but based on your lifestyle, based on your heredity, based on your microbiome, all of this stuff is going to dramatically vary. So be very thoughtful. Make sure you run experimentation. Having said that, what are the things that I think are universal? Number one, you want to be eating whole food whenever humanly possible. So you want to eat food that is recognizable from what it was in nature. So a piece of meat should look like a piece of meat. It shouldn't be highly processed. Your vegetables should look like vegetables. I mean, you should be brushing dirt off of them. That kind of recognizable from nature. Nuts should be, ideally raw. I'll be really honest. I do sometimes eat roasted nuts, but if I'm honest, that's worse than if you're just eating them raw. So you want things that are as close to their natural state as humanly possible. The less that they have been messed with, manufactured, altered in any way, the better off you're going to be. I will say that heat is something that I apply to virtually all of my food. There are some really interesting theories about, from an evolutionary standpoint, that cooking is one of the things that allowed us to grow the big brain, because by cooking it, you not only soften the food and make it easier to chew, but you also release some of the nutrients. It's beyond the scope of this to get into that, but when I say raw, I don't mean that everything needs to be uncooked. I just mean the less processed, the better. Things that I eat every day. I eat a lot of eggs, red meat. I eat some chicken, a bit of pork, but I'm eating a fair amount of meat, so I get a good portion of my calories from that. Again, individual variability. If you're doing a vegan thing, I'm totally about it. Test for the individual response that you get. I find that the more plant forward I go, there's like a breaking point where I start feeling worse. Could be me, it could be me doing it poorly. But as long as you're doing whole food, I think you're on the money. So eating whole food and making sure that you're avoiding sugar, that is like the big thing. So I don't think that you can eat fruit with impunity. I think you have to be very thoughtful about that. If you're unsure of what fruit is going to impact you and how, I highly recommend getting a continuous glucose monitor. That will allow you to eat fruit if you want and see what kind of glycemic response you have. For instance, I find that I can make certain fruit smoothies, and if I eat it slowly enough, my glycemic response will go up to about 120. I prefer to keep it in the 80s, but hey, if it goes up to 120 and it's sort of even and it comes back down, I don't consider that too problematic. But if I eat it really quickly and it spikes up to say 140, 150, that to me is problematic, and I don't want to be that high. So you can play with things, also what you put in the smoothie, etc. If you're going to eat fruit and vegetables, make sure that you separate fruit and vegetables. Keep those two things distinct. I think you will find by wearing a continuous glucose monitor that you're going to have a dramatically different response to most fruit than you will to vegetables. Again, there's a lot of variability here, so the more that you test on yourself, the better. But that's really the sort of generic response. Or generic setup that I think everybody should try. Whole food whenever humanly possible, avoid sugar. Keeping your blood glucose below 100, I highly recommend it. For me, I try to keep my glucose in the 80-ish range. That's sort of my default. I also do intermittent fasting. I think that is very effective. Getting into things like autophagy is beyond the scope of what we're talking about right now, but even that I think is going to be huge. Body composition is greatly affected by intermittent fasting. Again, individual variability. Make sure that you experiment with this stuff for yourself. I do, when you average it out, I think I went about 18 months where I was tracking every day. My average over that extended period of time was 17 and a half hours. So on the weekends, it's shorter, but on the weekdays, sometimes it's longer. Sometimes it's 19, 20, 21, 22 hours that I'll go between meals. But again, over a very extended period of time, it averages out to 17 and a half hours of not eating. Now, the way that I do that, I have my last meal around 1:15, definitely done chewing by 2 p.m. And then I don't eat again until the next day at around 9:30, somewhere around in there. Shorter on the weekends, longer during the week, and it balances out. I'm having everything from green leafy vegetables like bok choy, collard greens, kale, broccoli, to carrot, jicama. I do occasionally have some sweet potato. Gotta be a little thoughtful about that one. Watch your glycemic load. That definitely spikes me more than green leafy vegetables, but those are the mix that I use. Again, I'm eating whole foods. Virtually all of my calories come from whole food. During the week, in fact, I'd say 95% of my calories come from whole food. It's very rare that I deviate from that. But doing that allows me to have tremendous focus, a lot of energy, get the most out of my workouts, maintain my body composition, keep my fat low, keep keep my glycemic spikes low, so I'm not getting, blood sugar spikes, which helps me maintain my energy through the day. And also, just from a longevity standpoint, I think that's a great idea. I will say, go look at David Sinclair. He's got some pretty compelling information around the fact that meat may not be great for longevity. So while it makes me feel awesome, it's something called mTOR. So be thoughtful as you get into the complex weeds of this stuff. Nutrition is a very big, complex topic. Again, the only things that I consider universals are whole food and reducing sugar. Universals. Close to a universal would be intermittent fasting, though some people can have differing responses to that. So be thoughtful as you experiment with this stuff. But if you do that, like I said, 80+% of your problems are gonna go away. That's a nice low inflammation diet, and keeping your inflammation low is incredibly important.
In fact, right now, we're all gonna make a promise to ourselves. You can do it silently. We don't have to have everybody shouting it out. But you're gonna make a promise to yourself right now, because if you follow through with what we're about to say, everything will be different. If you failed to do this, you'll come back a year from now and you're gonna write the same shit on the wall. I promise, because this is the part that you have to break out of. Make yourself a promise right now that you will disengage your sense of self, your sense of self-worth from achievement. And you're gonna marry that to pursuit. Once you are wholly focused on sincere pursuit, everything changes. When you're focused on outcome, when you're saying to yourself, I want to get rich, I want to win the Academy Award, those are my dreams. It's an end state, right? It doesn't work. Like, here's one of those things. Things become trite because they're so true. So please, for the love of God, don't make people repeat the most obvious shit ever, like money can't buy happiness. Okay? Money can't buy happiness. It can buy a lot of cool shit. It bought me a really nice house. In fact, baby, show the photo. Yeah. We actually own part of that jet company. I'm not joking. How crazy is that? We know the CEO. There was one time where I was trying to get on the flight and they were giving me shit. I can't remember why. And I called the CEO up and I was like, yo, you need to talk to your gate agent. Like, that's money. It's bananas. Money is better than you think. It is more powerful than you think, but it is not at all what you've been told. Money solves money problems, and that's awesome. And there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with money. There's no joke. So we run Impact Theory out of our house. Our house is like 10,000 square feet, swimming pool, balconies, all that crazy shit. One of our rooms is actually called, when we bought the house, they called it this. It's called the Great Room. And that thing is big. I'm not joking. We once played Nerf with Nerf guns. We did like a whole hide and seek, capture the flag thing in the house. It was crazy. So money does really extraordinary things. People will chase money forever because money actually has utility. So I am not the guy that's saying, oh, money doesn't matter, or money's not a thing, or money's not worth the pursuit. What I am saying, though, money really can't buy happiness. The very thing that you're pursuing in your life is very simple. It is fulfillment. That's it. Now, I sum up fulfillment very simply. How do you feel about yourself when you're by yourself? Do you feel good? Do you feel like you're making the most of your life? Are you tapping into what the Greeks call techne? Are you working your ass off? And that's a key component. Is it hard? Are you working your ass off? Sad but true. Are you working your ass off for a set of skills? This is the angry face. This is about tapping into rage. We talked about that, Elizabeth. Not at rage yet. We'll get there. But there we go. So you really have to work hard for a set of skills that matter to you. Now, the skills have to matter. That's a key part of the equation. Once the skills matter to you and they allow you to serve not only yourself but other people, and then you actually go and serve those people, it becomes this really potent cocktail of neurochemistry. But I want to make sure that everybody understands the game that you're playing is a game of neurochemistry, right? In the last year, at least 2 billionaires committed suicide. So I mean, that's heartbreaking when anybody commits suicide. But when billionaires start committing suicide, like if the answer is not just self-evident beyond all imagining that money is not going to solve the problems that exist between your ears, like there's nothing more anyone can tell you. A fool never learns. A smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others. On this one, I'm begging you, be wise. I'm not telling you not to chase money. I'm just saying it's not going to feed you emotionally the way you think it is. So you've got to completely divorce yourself from this notion of outcome and become completely obsessed with the idea of sincere pursuit. Now, why sincere pursuit? The reason to tie your sense of self, your self-esteem, your pride, your ego, your identity, all of that, the reason to tie that to sincere pursuit is it's the only part you can control. I cannot promise you that you'll ever be successful. You cannot promise you that you will be successful. But you can promise and know, if you actually did it, to show up every day and really pursue it. You control your mindset. You control how you feel about yourself. Nobody can actually get you to feel some kind of way about yourself. You allow that shit in, right? That's like the cheesiest self-help shit you're ever going to hear. But it got cheesy because it's so true, so people repeated it a lot. And if you lose sight of that, if you lose sight of what you allow yourself to think is going to control you at a neurochemical level, and at the neurochemical level, that's going to influence then again how you feel and how you think. And then you get into this death spiral where you're thinking negative shit, you believe in the negative shit, which makes you feel badly about yourself. And then you get stuck in that and you can't get out. And you see a lot of that on the hopes and fears. People afraid they're never going to be able to break free. People in this room that took the time to write it down that they were never going to get out of that negative loop. And that negative loop is really real, but here's the thing. The negative loop is based in biology. And once you begin to understand what the biology is exactly, then you can begin to take control of your life. And step one in the biological train is to break the tie that you have between outcome and worth. Once you begin to break that down, then you can step to naked and raw and say, all right, this is just practice. And once you're in that mode of practicing, you're in skill acquisition mode. And the name of the game is skill acquisition. Like it really is sort of that dull and boring. It's just about getting so good at something that you can't be denied. And that's one of those things, like I'm going to say that phrase so much that I worry that's going to become trite. But that is one of the most awe-inspiring notions on the planet. The thought that you could become so good at something that you leave people in awe. And when you can leave people in awe, you can do just about anything you want with your life.
The big thing, and this is why I always tell people, there need to be two things true about the goals you're trying to accomplish. One, they need to be honorable, and two, they need to be exciting. So we'll set honorable aside for a second and just focus on being just absolutely committed out of enthusiasm to accomplishing your goal. And this has been one of the things that's propelled me the most in my career, is that I legitimately am excited about the thing that I'm trying to build. And because I value myself for the sincere pursuit of this thing that is both exciting to me and honorable in that it's, going to lift people up if I actually accomplish it. And I'm holding myself accountable to actual results. But the game, which is the right way to think about it, the game of trying to turn my potential into usable skills that can do something tangible in the world to make that goal that's exciting and honorable come true, because all of that game is predicated on making sure that I love the time in the field, that I'm leaving everything out on the field, and I value myself for that. I don't value myself for accomplishing it, but I value myself for actually trying to pursue it. So now you can imagine I'm saying this stuff to myself all the time. So the weekends are fun and I do wife-oriented things, and I'm doing, like in your case, I would be doing the things that are oriented around around my kids and I would love it and I would have work shut off in my mind and I wouldn't be trying to work double duty. On the weekends, I would be with my kids. And then during the week, I'm going to be focused on that goal that I want to be focused on. Now, here is the catch. If your value system is such that family time is far more important and exciting to you than work time, you may want to reevaluate your goals, because it may be that you're trying to convince yourself to pursue something Monday through Friday that actually doesn't resonate with you. Now, if that's true, you've got a couple different options. You can either find a way to make the stuff that you want to do with your family, for your family, that skill set. You can find a way to make that a big part of your Monday through Friday so that it feels like more of a continuation of the week. It may not be playtime, and I get it. Everybody has to eat and pay your bills. And so you're going to have to find something to monetize. But there are often things, what I call universe of. So if family time, quality time with your kids, that's a skill set that you want to be extraordinary at. What's a way where you could be in the universe of that skill set, those things during the week, so that you saw a direct correlation between what you do during the week and then that thing that really matters to you, which is your family time on the weekend. So it could be pursuing a degree in psychology. It could be working at a daycare. It could be teaching. I don't know in what way that to you is sort of the deep passion, but that's another way to approach this. There's no right or wrong goal. There is only a goal that is both exciting and honorable and gets you amped on Monday so that the way you're pursuing it through the week is exciting to you and you don't feel like you're living for the weekend. And that's where people are often falling apart, is their Monday through Friday is a should thing. It's I should want this. I should pursue this, instead of being a continuation of just the things in life that they love. And the way that I've tried to structure my life is such that on the weekend, other than spending time with my wife, the most exciting thing that I can think of to do are the fun parts of my Monday through Friday. That's how much I enjoy what I'm pursuing and what I'm trying to build. Is that, sure, there's overhead. Look, I will say that my work life is comprised of 60% overhead, meaning things I don't want to do, and 40% things I do want to do. But that 40% is so much fun, and the 60% serves that 40% so well that on the weekend I can pull from that 40% and just be energized and feel wildly enthusiastic. That is the best way that I could spend my totally free time. And that is a sign that you've got things aligned. So that would be my encouragement. If you find yourself having a hard time revving back up, it tells me that you figured something out on the weekends that you haven't yet figured out during the week. Find a way to align them. Your brain has evolved to be a thing. And there's a lot, rightly so, of focus in the popular zeitgeist around mindset about understanding the mind. And that is critically important. But so few people take the time to really understand what gives birth to the mind, which is your biology. And so understanding your mind within the context of evolution and the brain become critically important. And people that don't take the time to distinguish between the brain and the mind are doing themselves a disservice. I think much of what they go through is going to be, it's going to be surprising is what I was going to say, but the reality is what people end up getting stuck on is they confuse feeling with thinking. And the immediacy of feelings, the visceral nature of them, there's something about embedded in the way that we experience an emotion is this just screaming from our subconscious that this is real, this is true, this is it. This is the context. Everything you need to know, dear mind, is contained in this emotion. And it's really an interesting process that I think warrants a lot more thought on, certainly my part, and probably science's part, and for sure, any of you that are following along at home, a big part of what you should be thinking about is the nuance of how all of this comes into being and how emotions are. The great trick that they pull is they paint themselves to be self-evident. Thank you for letting me think in real time here. This is interesting. emotions feel self-evidently right. I don't even want to say true, because true doesn't capture what's really going on. When I try to talk about the physics of being human, a big part of that is that sense that my reaction to this moment, to this event, does not strike me as a decision. It strikes me as self-evidently right because of the things that I feel. And I'm pretty sure that as we went through one of the classes, I read a quote by Thomas Sowell, which I'm going to paraphrase. And it's, the problem isn't that Timmy doesn't know how to read. The problem isn't even that Timmy doesn't know how to think. The problem is that Timmy doesn't know what thinking is. He confuses it for feeling. And we feel something. It feels so self-evidently right that this reaction that we're having is not an echo of biology and context and our own life experiences and a bazillion decisions about what to believe that we have made. It feels self-evidently the only logical way to react to this set of circumstances. And that is what leads people to spiral, because people have different reactions. They both think they are self-evidently right, and people spiral. And so now re-anchoring you guys back around this idea of, no, you have a goal. The only thing that matters is, will reacting the way that you're reacting take you towards that goal? And if we can all embrace this idea of fulfillment, that fulfillment is the goal, having a positive emotional state that is resilient to the ups and downs of life, because we have self-respect, self-worth, we're elevating ourselves, improving ourselves, and elevating, improving those around us. If that's our goal, and we can all buy into that, now we have a steering mechanism. And this is the thing that's crazy making for me in this, cultural upheaval that we're living through right now, which is people don't agree on what the goal is. And when you don't agree on what the goal is, now you have what Lisa and I call a collision of values. When you have a collision of values, either talk about the collision of values or shut the fuck up. Like, legitimately, those are your two options. Because option one, let's talk about the collision of values and like what should be the goal. Fruitful things can come out of that. Arguing about the tea, as Lisa and I call it, the biggest argument we ever had was over a cup of tea. Now you can imagine that doesn't make any sense. How could you ever get in a fight that large over a cup of tea? The answer is you can't, but you can get in an argument that big about a collision of values, which then attacks your sense of self, identity. There's this incongruous thing where your reaction feels self-evidently correct. And yet this person is acting in a crazy way, because the way that I feel, that is self-evidently correct. There's no need to even question it. It is obviously right. Now, you get these massive fireworks because the other person is thinking the exact same thing. They feel self-evidently correct because they have all these emotions that are kicked up by their biology, that is kicked up by millions of years of evolution, misinterpreted through this lens that we live in called life, in a modern context, completely removed from the evolutionary soup that our brains marinated in, as they were formed. And now all of a sudden, people cannot allow themselves to conceive that, oh, this emotion was a choice, which I have made somewhere through a string of the gazillion little moments that led up to right now in this moment. All of those decisions have formed a set of values, and those values are essentially invisible to me because I have mistaken them for truth. Therefore, my values become water, right, to the fish. Fish is the last one to know what water is. It's just, it permeates everything in their world. It just is. It's like us and air, right? That actually had to be discovered. Imagine the hundreds of thousands of years, like really think about how long, where you've got human level cognition as we think of it today, and yet there's no concept of I'm in this thing. It just, you're here.
And values become that water. You don't even think about them. You don't think that they govern essentially every aspect of your life. And yet they do. And the failure to recognize that my values are not objectively real, they are simply choices that I have made invisibly based on all these emotions that I've gotten, which were kicked up to me by evolution. I don't understand them. I don't understand what drives them, but they feel self-evidently true. Therefore, I go with them. Therefore, however I feel, I confuse with thinking. And I think I've thought through the problem. I think I have articulated what my goal is and how I'm going to get there. But the reality is I've just been feeling this whole time. And chaos ensues.
Motivation comes in waves. That's the most important thing to understand and that's just neurobiology. So that's true for everybody. Motivation is, it is a very complicated cocktail of beliefs, of excitement, thinking about, what you're going to achieve. It is how your calorie count is, how much sleep you've gotten, all of these things bundled up. And so it is inevitable that sometimes you're really going to feel it and sometimes you're not. I am blown away that you were able to get a 70-day streak. Most people will go their entire lives and not be able to string something like that together. So some of what we're going to be doing to get you back in that space is to remember what it was that had you stoked in the beginning. So a big part of motivation is always about actually wanting that thing at the end of the rainbow. So what is your pot of gold? What is the thing that made you want to do this in the first place? And so when it comes to working out, personally, I absolutely hate working out. So I understand anybody that has motivation for a minute and then ends up burning out. I get that so much, I can't even begin to tell you. So here are the things that I do to make sure that even as these sort of ebbs and flows go of my motivation, that I stay on track. Number one is making sure that you want that thing at the end, that you're actually excited about that. So you've got to be honest with yourself about what it is that you want. So often, people are judging themselves for what it is that they want, that they don't double down on focusing on that thing. So let's say that you just want to look good when you're naked. And that is the God's honest truth about what is getting you excited about this. And what you're going to want to say is, this is about longevity. I just want to be healthy. I want to be, my best self. But in reality, you're just thinking about six-pack abs, washboard stomach, or the way you look when you catch yourself in the mirror, whatever is real. Or if you're like me and you're a psychopath about wanting to live forever, and that really is the thing that motivates you, then lean into that. But don't let other people's judgments about what you should want color what you actually want. So that's the beginning. Focus on what is it you really want? What is it you really care about? Grab onto that, focus on that, start fantasizing about that again, spending time thinking about what it would be like to actually have that. Because you said a word in your question that I want to take exception to, which is that you want to find your motivation again. You don't find motivation, you build motivation. So we're going to build that motivation back up by admitting what we really want, by focusing on it and getting hype about it. And then we also want to find a way to really fall in love with the process. So what is it in the moment, in the act of actually working out, that you can get into? Is it the getting stronger? For me, that was huge, like knowing that I was getting stronger and I needed to associate something with that. You want to have a self-narrative around showing up and doing this thing when you know other people can't, they won't. During COVID, during lockdown, they're getting worse, they're getting weaker, you're getting stronger, you're getting better, and people are so weird about competition. But my friend, let me tell you, one of the most controversial posts that I posted recently, which I did not expect to be controversial, was that I was talking about business, but I said this is a competition, which is patently self-evident in my opinion. But being willing to compete with others and to have a self-narrative around striving and pushing and doing more than other people are willing to do, that will feed your soul in a way that I can't convey. And people that are afraid to compete, people that are afraid to lean in, people that are afraid to make huge demands of themselves, they will fall by the wayside to the people that can have that discipline, that get excited about pushing themselves, being accountable, being consistent. Because ultimately, those things lead to an actual outcome, meaning you actually do get stronger. You do get better. You look better. You have better longevity, better stamina, whatever it is, whatever that thing is that you're motivated by, you really can achieve that. But you have to be consistent. Now, I got motivated just answering your question. So I'm very hopeful that that motivated you as well.
There really are only two macro level motivators that we have in life, and that's pleasure and pain. And so what I want people to understand is, okay, so if nature only gave you two things to motivate you, pleasure and pain, why would you eliminate half of them? And so most people think that life is about avoiding the pain. I'm here to tell you right now, in a very controlled fashion, it is about really experiencing the pain, learning from it. So Ray Dalio, the most successful hedge fund manager of all time, has a perfect math equation. Pain plus reflection equals progress. If you don't feel the pain, you never reflect on it. So my thing is I spend 80% of my time focused on the beautiful things in my life, the things I'm grateful for, the beautiful things that I want to bring into existence, all of it. 20% of the time, though, I'm in the darkness, man. I'm in that Tim Grover, relentless, I'm going to make this happen if I have to break myself. And I'm not afraid to lean into that because I know how powerful it is. Now, if you really want to put numbers how powerful this is, they did a study and they wanted to find out what happens, how can we get people to endure more pain? And the punchline is hilarious. So they would take people and they would submerge their arm in a bucket of ice and they would just hold it there as long as you can. Now, at first it's just cold, but after a while it really starts to hurt. And so people would end up yanking their arms out. They found that people could hold their arm in the bucket 35% longer if you let them display anger. So put it in, they get to that point where they're about to pull it out and you tell them, yell, cuss, do whatever you need to, and they'd be able to do it. The expression of intensity, even what I'm doing right now, I can feel myself ready, right? I'm ready to strike, my muscles are tense, I've got a different posture, I bring my chin down, there's intensity in my eyes. Like, dude, I'm now feeling that because I'm embodying it, right? So it makes me really feel that. And so I actually started to tell the story earlier. I hate the gym. But what I would do to make myself work out is my wife would be on the opposite side of the gym and I would stare at her and I would imagine her being attacked. And I would imagine her being attacked by people bigger than me and that the only way that I could fight them off was to get stronger. There was nothing beautiful in it. I was not worried about aesthetics. I was worried about saving my wife. And by stepping into that dark place, and because people are like, what are you doing? But dude, I needed that motivation to push past what I want, to push past pain, boredom, all of it, and just to really get into it and get a result. But I find that people shy away from that. Look, to me, it's an 80-20 split. If you're spending more than 20% of your time there, it will be corrosive. It will start to erode your sense of self because you're going to feel badly, right? Because I would be saying to myself, you're weak, come on, like you've got to get stronger. If you spend 80% of your time doing that, that sucks. I don't want to live like that. But not being able to dip into both, you'll just never hit the level of extraordinary. You may be fine, you may even be good, but you're never going to be great.
The key here is recognizing that there really is only one path to success. And that is you're going to have to set the bar ridiculously high and then surpass all expectations. You want to really show people that you are capable of doing things that other people cannot. When you can outperform other people, and I know nobody likes to think this is a competition, but the reality is when you can do things that other people can't do, and if those things are valued by the company, you are going to move quickly through that company. Even if your boss is trying to steal your ideas, which I know is something that happens to a lot of people, if you really are the person that's coming up with the ideas and your boss wouldn't be able to get very far without them, you've got leverage. And so understanding that being able to outperform people is always the right answer. That's where I would focus. Okay, then the next thing is, so I've got this amazing skill set. Then the next thing is, when I'm always going to be growing my skill set day after day, 2, I'm going to take my job description and I'm going to say, all right, this is the stuff that I have to get done in the first half of my day and do it extremely well. And then in the second half of my day, I'm going to go find other projects that the company is trying to get accomplished, see what I can do to help other people, take on responsibility for projects that are beyond my job description, and then I'm going to do them just as well as I do my actual main job. People that do that are worth their weight in gold. Not only will you endear yourself to the people that you're helping, but when you go to your boss and say, hey, are there other projects that I could take on, maybe even things that are outside of the exact department that you're in, that's going to be a huge help. Almost every company is looking for people that show initiative and are able to be trusted with additional projects. And if you're in a company where they just aren't interested in that, they don't want people that show initiative, which, by the way, I challenge. I think if you put me into a company, even with strict hierarchies, even with political intrigue, all that stuff, that I would find a way to be useful to other people, that I would find a way to help other people. There's a quote. I'm going to paraphrase it, go something like this. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you don't care about the credit. So if you don't care about getting the credit and you're just helping people, I think people are definitely going to take that help. Now, the key is that you make yourself indispensable to them. Once you're indispensable to them, now you have that leverage. And so being able to use that leverage to illustrate that you have a long track record of high-level performance within the company, now when you go and start asking for a raise, you're going to be much more likely to get it. And here is the secret to getting a raise. Go to your boss or whatever department it is that you're trying to move into and ask them, what would it look like? I want this title, or I want to make this much money. What would I have to deliver to you in order to get that? And if you get them to explain to you, like, hey, if you were able to do XYZ thing, that would be no brainer. I would definitely put you forward for that promotion. Amazing. Now you know exactly what you need to do. Now you just need to go make sure that you get the skill set that's going to allow you to do that better than other people. Now, my thing is, I'm always trying to reach beyond what I'm getting paid to do. Because remember, I started out as an employee, okay? I've not always owned my own companies. So when I was an employee, that's what I was thinking about. Like, I want to be indispensable. I want people to have fear of loss with me. I want them to be afraid that I'm going to leave because I am delivering so much value. I'm not saying that's not my job. Instead, I'm saying, what does a company need? And then I'm helping the company get that thing. And so when you're able to assess what problems a company is facing and help make those problems go away, you become extraordinarily valuable. When you're communicating very directly about what you want and finding out what you would need to do to get there, and then delivering against that, you're going to find yourself going up. When you're constantly helping other people with their projects and delivering a high level of quality and not asking for the credit for that, you're just doing it because you want to help people. While I have no doubt some people will take advantage of you, the vast majority of people will not, and you will find yourself meeting those people again and again and people wanting to champion you and lift you up. If you run that strategy, I'm telling you right now, you will be able to make things happen in your current company. On balance, people see the rate at which I improve. They see that I have a goal and I'm a servant to that goal. And then I build skills based on what will take me to that goal. And because I win on balance more than I lose, people still follow. So leadership is not about perfection. It's about progress. Have you ever dealt with a bad leader? If so, how do you go about it? Yes. I think we've all seen bad leadership. And it depends on where you're at in the hierarchy is going to determine how you can handle it. Now, because I'm the CEO, it's very easy. If somebody is displaying bad leadership, you go and explain you're displaying bad leadership, and you explain what they're doing well, what they're doing poorly, what they need to improve on, and how to improve upon it. And you just lay it out. Like I said, at Impact Theory, there is only one way. Own your opinion, speak up, or get out. And that's not true for anybody more than it's true for me. So I have to tell people exactly what I think they're doing right, what I think they're doing wrong, and then help them adjust. If you are reporting to them, then it becomes a very different game. Now, I would hypothesize that if you have a toxic leader, somebody who is not going to listen, somebody who is abusive, whatever, that you have two choices. You can either outperform them and go around them, which I would never be shy or bashful about, or I would leave the company. But personally, I would not just sit there and suffer in silence. So at the end of the day, you want to play a long game. So, outperforming, I cannot tell you the number. I almost got in a fist fight once because I got hired at the same time as another guy and just kept getting promoted above him until I was his direct boss. And he was very displeased by that. Nobody, well, I won't say nobody, most people can't handle that. And in that, you have to figure out how to get around somebody that's toxic. On the other hand, if they aren't toxic, but they're just displaying bad leadership, an open conversation with them is the first place to start. Give them a chance to improve based on improved understanding. So coming to them and saying, hey, I feel like you led me astray, or I feel like I'm not getting what I need, or whatever the problem is, in very simple, clear language,
Don't do it cruelly. Don't try to be punitive. Don't set out to make them feel bad or stupid. Just say, hey, here's what I'm looking for. Here's what I don't feel that I'm getting. And I would love to discuss if there's something that we can do so that I can get these things that I need, either from you or from somebody else. But oftentimes, people don't realize where they're going astray. And oftentimes, people have never had that kind of direct and open feedback. Now, it is going to sting. That is going to hurt them. And I would actually encourage you, it might be worthwhile to get one of their peers to come into that meeting, which of course they're not going to love, but you're going to avoid a he said, she said moment. And this is where the culture of the company comes in. At Impact Theory, we tell people that they need to do that. So if you've got conflict between two people, you need to bring somebody in that can sort of mediate that disagreement so that we can figure out what's going on. We are not an organization where it's like, hey, go tell HR. You need to tell that person directly. You need to let them know if you don't get the response that you want from them, go to somebody else. This is not a company where you suffer in silence. This is not a company where you bitch behind people's back. This is a company where you speak directly to people. Now, a lot of people can't handle that. And I get that there are realities to be faced about feeding your family, keeping a roof over your head, all of that. There are also realities to be faced. Not everybody's like that. There are amazing people out there that are extraordinary leaders. There are companies with incredible culture, and you can find them. But you have to look. So in this particular example, it starts with very direct, open, and honest communication done in a way that is protective, so that you've got somebody else there, so that there's not going to be some claim about insubordination or whatever. And if you really are looking for a solution and not just a punishment for bad leadership, then you guys can work together and hopefully get exactly what you want. But open and honest communication is the path. You're never going to get rid of the fear of following your passion. Let's start with that. As you said, there is no such thing as arriving in life. And this is one of the main ideas that I want people to really grapple with as you think about how to live your life well, is that there is no success big enough that you can stand in that success and that it will last forever. Really, this is a game of neurochemistry. This is how you feel. This is what stresses you out. This is what do you love. This is an ever-changing roller coaster of emotions. And so understanding that you could fail at a job that you hate, I think this was Jim Carrey's advice to his father, that you could fail at a job that you hate, so you might as well at least try the one that you're going to love. Now, that doesn't mean that we just throw caution to the wind, and we're going to get more into that with some of the subsequent questions, but recognizing that you will never reach a destination. The only destination in life is death, and that is not a worthy aim. You shouldn't be thinking about that or focusing on that or thinking in terms of, I just need to get to 95 or 150 or whatever age you're aiming at. This really is a question about how you want to feel every day. And once you understand that there are things that make you feel alive, those things you're passionate about, those things that give you more energy than they take, and then there are things that take more energy than they give. And so you want to be very careful to structure your life in a way that you're doing something that gives you more energy than it takes. Okay, so we know that we're never going to arrive. Because we know that we're never going to arrive, we understand that this is really just a game of emotional management. Because we know that this is a game of emotional management, then what we're asking is, what is this thing that gives us passion? Is it giving us the neurochemistry that we want? Or is the thing that we're passionate about so high risk that even though it would be fun in the abstract, once I really commit to that and make it my job, it stops having that same sense of giving me energy. And that's the tension. This is where people end up not being able to make a decision because they have not yet figured out how to optimize their life in such a way that they can pursue that thing that they're passionate about without that sense of joy and excitement and that incredible thrill of getting better at something that you love doing. And that even when it's hard, it's giving you that energy. Because people can get lost in that, they get in there, they think this is going to be amazing, that passion turns into a job, and then they lose the enthusiasm, or there's so much stress and pressure around having to be successful at that passion because you no longer have the safety net of a job or whatever the case may be,
They don't recognize that just pursuing something that's your passion on paper isn't necessarily going to solve that problem. That the problem fundamentally is that life is an ever-changing roller coaster of emotion, and the name of the game is to manage those emotions well. Okay, so how do we set it up? If we have a passion and we want to follow that, how do we do it well? So we know that we're never going to get rid of the fear until we have predictability and stability in terms of the financial things that we need. And I would say we want to take care of that. We want to make sure that we have as much safety and security on the financial side as we can to give us the room to pursue the things that we're passionate about. Now, the fastest way to do that is to cut your expenses to the quick. If you don't have an expensive lifestyle, this becomes a whole lot easier. And one of the mistakes that people make is they're living a lifestyle that's beyond their means. And so they have to keep making this massive monthly nut. And so it becomes very stressful to pursue that thing that they love. Okay, so we're either going to recognize that we have to reduce our expenses so that we don't have to worry so much about money, or if we already have a job that pays well, we have to pursue our passion in nights and weekends fashion such that we can build that financial stability so that we can then progress. Okay, so getting that stability there I think is really important. The people that have the strongest home life take the biggest risks. And oftentimes pursuing that passion is going to be a risk. So instead of trying to eliminate the fear, we're going to structure our life in such a way that the things that trigger the fear aren't as high risk. Okay, that's a big part of this. Then we want to make sure that we're structuring our passion in such a way that it doesn't end up robbing us of the joy. So we want to experiment with what our passion looks like as a financial endeavor. And I think that's a very important experiment to run. Again, nights and weekends without making any major life choices is going to be very important. Now, if we're in a situation where the odds are stacked against you, this is where the first two things that we just walked through become incredibly important. You want to make sure that you've got your finances taken care of so that if this fails, that it doesn't drag you down. That will make it not fun. And again, there's no accomplishment so great that you can stand in that forever. So even if you were to be successful, you still have to deal with the emotional management. So do not put yourself in this hyper-stressful situation where you're always living for the future, because the success is not guaranteed, but the struggle is. So the key is to struggle well. That's the answer. Get after it. One of the coolest quotes I've ever heard in my life is, don't sell out what you want most for what you want right now. And I think that is a quote to live by right there. So that's the big one, is really making sure that you are focused and excited about what it is that you want long term. And even just having a phrase that you can say to yourself about what it is that you want most, I think would be hugely beneficial. So often people don't have that level of clarity. So when we're talking about procrastination, just the raw desire to actually see something through to the end is going to be critically important. Now, the rest of what we're talking about is very mechanistic, but I want to go through it. So first of all, anything that's disrupting the rhythm of your day is going to be wildly problematic. I will answer the question assuming that there's just absolutely nothing you can do about that, but I want to sneak in a quick little answer for anybody else that finds themselves in a similar situation. If there's any way for you to get out of the situation where you are constantly having the rhythm of your day disrupted, I highly encourage it. So we're about to go through how you can regiment the chaos, but first and foremost would be to not find yourself in the chaos to begin with. And that really does matter in terms of when I think about my own life and trying to be as deadly efficient with every single moment that I have. Eliminating disruptions is a big one. Okay, now assuming that you can't eliminate the disruptions, then you're going to need to start building some rules into your life so that any moment where you have, let's say, that rule might be, if I have any consecutive 3 minutes where I know 3 minutes are available, then I'm going to immediately do X. Now that X might be journaling. So you keep something like Evernote on your phone and you have a topic preordained, something you already know that you're going to do. And whenever you have a gap, because look, some gaps just aren't going to be worth it. So if I had a 90-second gap, I may not fuss with it. It's going to take 20 seconds just to get your phone out and get the app open and have it refresh and all of that. But if you're really hardcore and you say anytime where I have a 3-minute stretch, then I'm going to make sure that I immediately begin doing something that's productive.
a big part of making limited windows like that productive is the following. So first and foremost is having an important things list. And by having that important things list, you're going to be able to immediately slide into knowing exactly what you should be doing so that you don't spend the 3 minutes just trying to figure out what it is that you're going to do. So you're going to have that important things list. You're going to know exactly what you should be doing. You're going to build in some minimum amount of time where you say, anytime where I have this amount of time or more, I'm immediately going to dive into one of the things on my important things list. Now, important things list shouldn't all be just these gargantuan things that require hours and hours of time. You want to make sure that you have things that you can do that are long. You want to make sure that you have some things that are medium, and you want to make sure that you have some things that are short. And when you have that, now you can begin slotting into those. Some of what you may be doing in the short may be researching something, learning more about, so you're talking a lot about film and TV. So I can just tell you right now that I have a YouTube playlist, which I also curate ahead of time. So anytime I've got a brief window, it's what I call transitional moments, where I immediately pick up my phone, take it out, go into, let's say, screenwriting. Boom, I've already got 20 videos that are just going to autoplay, so I don't even have to select the next one. Curated on that playlist. Boom, I started going, and now I'm researching. Another thing that I can do in very limited windows of time is I have specific stories that I'm going to be journaling on. And I might journal for a minute. I might journal for an hour, depending on how much time I have. But every second that I spend working on that, I'm able to eke a little bit more productivity out of it. So that's huge. You're going to need to make sure that you get sleep. That's going to be really critical. And then you need to prioritize things in your life. You mentioned your wife. So for me, my wife is number one. Now, not in terms of time allocation, but in terms of importance. So when I know that there's any friction there, I'm going to deal with that first. When there's, I need to capture joy or something to really reaffirm the relationship and make sure that it is this beacon of joy and hope in my life, I'm going to do that. So putting your values in life in ranked order is going to be critically important to you. You're setting your expectations too high. You're triggering this sense of inadequacy in yourself. So I will tell you that kicking yourself in the ass is super powerful, but my rule is I never do anything that diminishes my sense of self. Why? Because it actually makes you less effective, and effectiveness at moving towards my goal is the barometer by which I judge whether something was a success or not. And if I have made a decision and it moves me away from my goals because it's making me feel badly about myself, because I've set a standard that's too high, I'm nitpicking myself to death, now I'm getting worse, that's moving me away from my goal. And so I'm not going to do that. I don't allow that in my life. I don't allow it in my life. I do not allow myself to do things that diminish my sense of self and move me backwards. So when I feel it happening, I'm like, hey, even if it's true, even if I am the biggest loser that ever walked this earth, reinforcing that in myself will make me capable of less. Therefore, I don't do it. I have a bright line in my life that says I only do and believe that which moves me towards my goals. So we're just going to recognize as we set these expectations that it doesn't make sense to do anything that diminishes ourselves. So we're not going to set expectations that are so high that we know that we are bound to fail, or to set high expectations. I love that. Reach for the farthest star in the world, but don't value yourself for whether or not you achieve it. Value yourself for the sincere pursuit, meaning you really showed up, you really tried to get to that far star, to achieve some insane goal. It was not rhetoric. You really showed up, you got in there, you bled for this thing. But the whole time, you're valuing yourself, you're cheering yourself on because you're really trying. You're the man in the arena, covered in blood, sweat, and dirt. You might be getting your ass handed to you, but you're trying. And if you're trying, then you should be rewarding yourself. And if you're rewarding yourself, then you should feel better about it, which makes you more likely to get back in the ring and fight. And if that is the thing that leads you towards your goals, which of course it is, then we know that we are going to do and believe in that thing. Because now we're in the arena, we're fighting. Our behaviors line up with our desire to achieve that goal. So don't worry about whether or not you actually ever get there. Because let me tell you, success cannot be guaranteed. Struggle can. You will struggle. I cannot guarantee that you will be successful. But the juice is never going to be the success. It's never going to be the accolades. Just as there is no feast so grand
that you will never be hungry again. There is no accomplishment so profound that it won't be fleeting. No matter how big, no matter how much money you make, it will never be quote unquote enough because you're playing a game of neurochemistry. And your neurochemistry is designed to, no matter how big your meal was last time, to get you back out hunting again. It's just how it works. All desire is like that. It's cyclical. It'll feel awesome for a minute, for a day, for a week, maybe a month. But let me tell you, you're going to want to get back out there. You're going to want to hunt. You're going to want to accomplish again. So don't value yourself for that. This is how people end up making $1 billion only to feel as lost and empty as ever. You have a hole inside of you that can only be filled with progress, meaning, and purpose. It can't be filled with accomplishment. Irony of ironies. But that's the way an evolutionarily derived mind works. You have to be pushed to go on the journey over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Satiety, satisfaction, contentment are anathema to nature, to survival. So of course, you're never going to be able to sit in that. You're going to keep going again and again and again and again. So embrace that drive, accomplish huge things if you can, but only value yourself for the sincere pursuit.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag Believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video because you are awesome.
For 10 more amazing rules from Brendan Burchard, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
Your odds go way up, especially the odds of conscientious discipline and design. Your ability to surround yourself with people who are in a good place is one of the great gifts of our life.